Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. Haven't been good the last few months. Forgot to do episodes. Not really forgot. Haven't had time. But I'm back now. I was going to do an episode last week or the week before, but I got sick. I had a really bad cough, so I don't want to be that jackass going into movies with a cough and every 5 minutes, so, don't want to be that guy, so I decided to just not go, make everyone's experience a little bit better. So I'm finally going to go today. I'm going to do a ranking. I'm going to do a top 10. I'm going to do 3 episodes over the next 2 days, because today's Aquaman, obviously. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. I'm going to do, early in the morning, I'm going to do I'm going to do Into the Spider-Verse, and then tomorrow afternoon, or later in the evening, close to around 6 o'clock, I'll put up an episode, year in review episode. Well, I'll do a top 10. Now, I didn't want to do it. What I really wanted to see was Into the Spider-Verse, more than Aquaman, because Into the Spider-Verse, I've heard a lot of really good things about. Aquaman, I've heard literally nothing about, besides the trailers, which doesn't really bode well for a movie. If you don't hear anything, that's kind of it's like, in this case, no news is bad news, because, like, if it's good, you'll hear it's really good. If it's bad, you'll hear it's really bad. If it's okay, you're not going to hear anything. It's why no one talks about the first Thor movie or anything like that. Now, this movie was just that, though. That's the problem, is that it's just okay. Which I think Warner Brothers, as a company that's overseeing DC films, needed to have a real big hit with this. That's not to say this movie's bad. This movie is leagues better than Justice League, than Suicide Squad. I would say it's better than Batman v Superman. It's better than Man of Steel. It's not as good as Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman's consistently good through the whole movie. But this movie has a few things that I want to point out. Number one, this isn't the first time we've seen Jason Momoa and Amber Heard as Aquaman and as Mera. I haven't seen it in a while, but I think also, well, I know he was in the cast, but I don't know if they cut his scene or not. But I know for a fact Willem Dafoe's Vulko was in the cast of Justice League for a while, too. I don't remember if they cut his scene or if he was still in that scene in Atlantis when Steppenwolf's still in the Mother Box. So this isn't the first time we've seen these characters. I think the smartest thing this movie could have done is ignore Justice League altogether. Pretend it didn't happen. This could be a prequel. It could be a sequel. Doesn't matter. Ignore Justice League. But this movie decides to make an odd decision and acknowledge Justice League. Very early on in the movie, we see him, Aquaman had just rescued the big scene on the ship, where, on the submarine, where he saves the sailors from what we find out later is Black Manta and his team, and it sets up Black Manta as a character going forward. That's another thing. This movie has a lot of missed opportunities. So that happens, and then Mera confronts him and says, we have an issue in the ocean. King Orm, who is Ocean Master, wants to declare war on the surface, so we're going to, so we need your help to take back the throne. Basically, this movie functions as a role reversal of Black Panther. Where Black Panther, we have the King of Wakanda. We have T'Challa, who's the King of Wakanda. He's crowned in the beginning of the movie after his father's killed in Civil War. And then we have someone who has a claim to the throne, but is the bad guy, coming to take the throne and basically do what Orm is doing in this, where he wants to make Wakanda visible to the world and wants Wakanda to take over the world. Orm wants Atlantis to take over the world, but he already has the throne. And he's had the throne, and he has, at that point, a rightful claim to the throne. Now they need Aquaman, who is the illegitimate child, who is out of, back with, in what would basically be considered exile from a secluded society, coming in to take his rightful place as the firstborn to the throne. So that's the thing. It's like a not as good switch situation Black Panther. So Mera shows up and says, well, you saved us from Steppenwolf once before. Okay. They're acknowledging Justice League exists. A few scenes later, he's going to Atlantis for the first time with Mera. But he was in Atlantis in Justice League. And they were doing the weird, which I didn't even remember until it was brought up to me by Peter in the last 20 minutes, but they did the weird bubbles to talk, which I'm thankful they didn't do in this movie. That would have been really fucking annoying. So they do that whole thing, but, like, why are you acknowledging Justice League? If you're going to rebrand the entire DC Films division at Warner Brothers as, quote, Worlds of DC Comics, or Worlds of DC, which is, meant to invoke Elseworlds and all of that stuff, that way you can do basically whatever you want, then why are you bothering to acknowledge Justice League? Because you can say Justice League with its own thing. Not every comic that comes out references every event. Not every, like, that, there was no need to bring it up. Okay? There's 2 lines of dialogue referencing Justice League, and it completely throws a wrench into the internal logic of the movie, because in Justice League, if I remember correctly, because I haven't seen Justice League since I saw it in theaters, he's already King of Atlantis. Or at minimum, he is dealing in Atlantis, at a minimum, because he fights Steppenwolf alongside Mera in Atlantis when he's trying to steal the Mother Box. So, that, the whole thing is a little bit weird. I don't know why you'd even bring it up, is my point. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2, there's too much going on. It's kind of like they had Wonder Woman, which was a success. They had Justice League, which was going to be the end of what was going to be a 5-part pentilogy of movies from Zack Snyder with the Justice League, where it was going to be Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League. No, it was a quadrilogy. It was 4 movies. Batman v Superman, Justice League Part 2. Obviously, Part 2 is not happening, ever. But this movie seemed like they're like, okay, we have to get this going now. We have to get going. We can start out with this. Then it's like, so they're trying to pack in everything into this. But, like, look at the other starts of trilogies, okay? Other trilogies that have started out with a movie, they don't try to pack in so much into one movie. Like, Black Manta's arc in this movie should have began and ended with that opening scene on the submarine. Okay? You've set him up, and then at the end of the movie, you have him get the armor. Because you don't need Black Manta here, it just adds completely different layers of dumb things happening to derail the movie that aren't ever acknowledged either. Okay, so Orm is paying Black Manta to get the ship, to create a false flag operation, so that way they end up needing to they need to declare war on the surface, so that way he can get Dolph Lundgren's support, which Dolph Lundgren has a name in this movie, but it's so distractingly Dolph Lundgren in a really weird costume that it's just Dolph Lundgren, and he's Mera's father. So, to get his support, they do that. Then they need to get the support of 2 other tribes, so that way Orm can be declared the quote-unquote Ocean Master of the 7 kingdoms of Atlantis, I guess. They don't really go into too much detail on that. There's simultaneously a ton of lore and not enough lore packed into this movie. It's a very weird phenomenon. It's very bizarre, to say the least. So, he goes into... So, that's happening. Then, Dolph Lundgren wants his daughter brought back alive after she betrays Orm during the fight at Warrior Falls. Oh, wait, no, that was Black Panther. The fight in the Ring of Fire. They do that, and then he wants her back alive, but then for whatever reason he decides to give Black Manta an Atlantean tech, so that way Black Manta can fight him. Now, here's my thing. Why do we need to bring Black Manta? Black Manta has far too much of a role in this movie for what the movie is fundamentally about, which is about how the Atlanteans don't trust the surface people, but the Atlantean king who's doing this is going and dealing with surface people to do his dirty work. Now, I have a feeling in the long term is going to be like Legend of Korra, where in the first season of Legend of Korra, it's about Amon, who is non-bender, who's trying to stoke non-bender rebellion. But at the end, it turns out he's not really a non-bender, he's actually a waterbender who's taking away people's bending. Now, here's the thing with that. it would just further prove the point of the non-benders. It's like, look, you're just using us for whatever you need us for. It's like, it's the same thing. Because Orm was using the surface people to do that, it just furthers the divide. It's like, it doesn't help anything, it doesn't hurt anything. It's just stupid. It's just stupid. Why did they do that? You could have had that happen. You could have had him stumble on some Atlantean tech, because there's plenty of Atlantean tech going around during the last fight, and it's all bubbling up to the surface. And then you can have him team up with Randall Park, who's dealing with it anyway, and then have him do that. Or you can keep it the way it is, and then instead of Randall Park finding him at the end, you know who can find him instead? Lex and Deathstroke. You want to do a Legion of Doom? That's how you do a Legion of Doom. Now you have Black Manta on the Legion of Doom. There's so many missed opportunities here. That said, the CGI is good at times. Like, it's obvious the big establishing shots of Atlantis are beautiful, and they're very well done, and those are great. That said, there's some of the shark CGI in this movie that is less than perfect. When I say that, I mean King Shark on The Flash looks about as real, which is a TV budget, not $200 million for a major motion picture from a major production studio. So that's another thing that I have a problem with. Also, on top of all of this stuff going on in this movie, there's also a subplot of his mother, which is very reminiscent of Evangeline Lilly's Hope in Ant-Man, where it's like his mother went back to Atlantis when he was very young, never saw her again. Everyone lied to him all his life about what happened to his mother. He finds out what happened to his mother, that she was actually killed. And then it turns out she wasn't really dead. She's just in the secret realm. And then he finally finds her at the end after she saves his life. The whole thing is very bizarre that's packed into this movie too. That's something that could have been explored in another movie. Like, there's too much going on that didn't need to happen. That said, this movie is not ashamed of the fact that it comes from a comic book, which is great for this movie. And really shouldn't be something at this point that we're doing. Because Black Manta has a giant helmet. He has the costume. Mera has the costume. It's like everyone's in costume, and it's not like they're making fun of the costumes. They're not making fun of the names. It's like there's a lot of things that are working out well in that respect, where it's like they're not ashamed of where this comes from. But that's not enough to save the movie, and even there are a few very well choreographed fight and action sequences in this movie that are great, but if it was in a better movie, it'd be even better. Also, tracking shots are a lot less impressive when there's a lot of CGI in them. Because it makes it a lot easier to shoot. Which is why these worked as well as they did, because there's a lot of CGI in these tracking shots. So with that, this is going to sound like I'm joking, but I promise you I'm not. I'm going to give this movie a 7.8 out of 10, not because there's too much water, but because of all the stuff that bogged down the story and bogged down the movie. It makes the movie kind of a slog, and you're kind of like, why is all of this here? And it really, you could have expanded it. You could have done multiple movies. There are plenty of other options to handle this, plenty of avenues to take, but they just don't for whatever reason. So because of that, I'm going to give the movie a 7.8 out of 10. We'll round up to 8 now, just for the sake of, that. But yeah, if you haven't seen Aquaman yet, here's what I'm going to say about this. If you like superhero movies, you'll like this. The ending has a great end. The very ending of the movie is very reminiscent of Iron Man. Because it ends the same way as Iron Man, with him saying, instead of I am Iron Man, he says I am Aquaman. And him narrating at the end. It feels like that, and it's good, and it's like when you watch the movie, it feels like you're watching a superhero movie. If you like this kind of thing, you're gonna like this movie. But if you don't like superhero movies, I don't think this is gonna be the movie to turn you around and change your opinion. because it's just more of the same. It's like the ending is a CGI clusterfuck. If that is the exact same thing as everything else put out by DC films, where it's like that the slow motion action sequences that have become kind of standard are just kind of continuing, and we're not entirely sure why. I don't know. I feel like there's more to tell in this world of Aquaman. I mean, not in physically the world we live in. There's more to do, and it's like they hit a few points, and it's just like, okay, at least they're not ashamed of it. But the thing is, too, it's like the other problem with the Aquaman, with the reference to Justice League, is that's the only reference in the entire movie to the larger universe. It's like it worked in Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman is set almost 100 years before Justice League, before Batman even wears the cowl, before Superman comes to Earth and Krypton's destroyed. It's set like during the days of the previous Kings of Atlantis. There's so many things there that it makes sense that Wonder Woman isn't referencing it. But this one, we live in this is a world where the Suicide Squad is there. This is a world where Superman has died and come back to life. Batman has, been a very killy Batman, and Wonder Woman is there. The Flash is active and has captured Captain Boomerang, but then isn't actually active. And, this isn't the first time that they've been a little bit skippy with the continuity, because I remember after a backlash from, what's it called? There was a backlash when they said that it was all Batman villains and Suicide Squad, and then they cut in a scene where Captain Boomerang is caught by Barry Allen, and it's, I don't know. I feel like they could have, this isn't the first time they got to work with continuity a little bit better. That's what they got to work on, especially if you can do a series of movies. That said, if you like this kind of thing, well, you probably have seen it already at this point, considering it's the end of December. You've probably already seen it now for like 2 weeks. But, holy crap. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. But if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably someone who's on the fence at minimum about seeing this movie, if not having seen it already. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there for today. Tomorrow we'll be back with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I have much higher hopes for going into. Because, I mean, I've been hearing it's like God's gift to humanity in terms of animation, and it's the best animated movie of the year, and that's a very high praise considering how much I liked Incredibles 2. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there for today. And we'll be back tomorrow. Have a good day.